Chapter 11. Carousel of Generals. While the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia is commanded ably and consistently by General Robert E. Lee, President Lincoln is anything but satisfied with the leadership of the Union Army of the Potomac. With the midterm election behind, Lincoln replaces General George B. McClellan, the darling of the Democratic Party, who publicly stated his intention to become president, if not dictator. He turns to General Ambrose Burnside with the advice to aggressively pursue Lee. Burnside fails miserably and is replaced. November 5th, 1862.
Less than 24 hours after the midterm voting ended, President Abraham Lincoln relieved General George B. McClellan of his command of the Union Army of the Potomac. Given the popularity of Little Napoleon, the president could not have taken this action before the election, despite his persistent frustration with the general's willingness to fight. General McClellan was initially given command of the army after the loss at Bull Run in July 1861. McClellan quickly got to work providing the men with proper military training and instilling in them a remarkable esprit de corps. In recognition of organizing the army into an impressive fighting force, McClellan was given the title of General-in-Chief when Winfield Scott resigned. McClellan quickly developed a reputation for his arrogance and contempt toward the political leaders in Washington, D.C. McClellan wrote privately that Lincoln was nothing more than a well-meaning baboon, and that Secretary of State Seward was an incompetent little puppy. Lincoln finally tired of McClellan's insults and removed him from title General-in-Chief in March of this year.
Carter, were it not for the midterms, it is likely the president would have removed General McClellan after the battle at Antietam. Not only did the Union force outnumber the Confederates, but General Lee's battle plans were discovered by Union soldiers before the fight. Despite the troop advantage and the intelligence, McClellan barely left the field with a victory over Lee. McClellan also did not commit his full force in the battle, thereby allowing Lee to escape back to Virginia and fight another day. When the president learned of this failure to fight and that McClellan overruled his field generals who requested the order to join the fighting, Lincoln was furious. Many Republicans believe McClellan did not pursue Lee because of his antipathy towards emancipation. McClellan has said he, quote, will not fight for abolitionists, end quote. McClellan, a Democrat, believes slavery is protected by the Constitution.
November 7th, 1862.
President Lincoln named Ambrose Burnside General of the Army of the Potomac today. The president asked Burnside, who reluctantly accepted the assignment, to immediately begin making aggressive plans to confront and destroy the Confederate Army.
November 25th, 1862.
This is Danielle Burke reporting from Fredericksburg, Virginia, on the shore of the Rappahannock River. After being alerted to the movement of the Union Army, General Lee has shifted his army of Northern Virginia from Richmond to the high ground outside of Fredericksburg. All of General Longstreet's corps have arrived and been placed on the western ridge known as Maury's Heights. General Jackson has his 2nd Corps troops marching 20 miles a day from Winchester to get here before Union troops cross the river.
December 13th, 1862.
Today began cold and overcast. A dense fog blanketed the ground and made it impossible for the armies to see each other. The weather, however, did not stop the fighting. General Burnside, determined to display an aggressive spirit in his new role as commander of the Army of the Potomac, ordered simultaneous attacks against Confederate forces north and south of the city. A Union breakthrough by General Meade was wasted when 20,000 men remained standing in reserve. Skirmishing and artillery duels continued until dark, resulting in 5,000 Union and 3,400 Confederate casualties. This lost opportunity was preempted by the fighting to the north. General Burnside ordered his commander of the Right Grand Division to send, quote, a division or more, end quote, to seize the high ground to the west of the city.
Jackie, about 600 yards to the west of Fredericksburg, is a low ridge known as Mary's Heights. Rising 40 to 50 feet above the plain, the ridge is protected by a 4-foot stone wall, enhanced in places with log breastworks and abatis, making it a perfect infantry defensive position. Stationed there were 9,000 Confederate troops and sharpshooters, along with ample artillery. The Confederate artillery commander said, "We cover that ground now so well that we will comb it as with a fine-tooth comb. A chicken could not live on that field when we open on it." One would think this advantage would discourage any attack. Such was not the case. A Federal brigade burst toward Mary's Heights and the stone wall, then another and another until 3 entire divisions had hurled themselves at the Confederate bastion. In 1 hour, the Army of the Potomac lost nearly 3,000 men. But the madness continued.
Danielle, it is clear now that General Burnside either overestimated his forces or underestimated the enemy's position, or perhaps both, as more Union assaults tested the impossible. Each blue wave crested short of the goal. Not a single Union soldier laid his hand on the stone wall. One Federal soldier said, quote, "Men fell like leaves in autumn. It seems miraculous that any of us escaped at all," end quote. It was only when darkness shrouded the battlefield that, at last, the guns fell silent.
December 15th, 1862.
The White House received news this evening of a devastating loss at Fredericksburg. Today, federal forces retreated across the river, ending the Fredericksburg campaign in defeat. Casualties sustained by each army showed clearly how disastrous the Union Army's tactics were. The Union Army sustained the loss of over 12,000 men, more than twice that lost by the Confederates. The South erupted in jubilation over their great victory. The Richmond Examiner described it as a stunning defeat to the invader, a splendid victory to the defender of the sacred soil. Northern reaction has been fierce. The Cincinnati Commercial wrote, "It can hardly be in human nature for men to show more valor, or generals to manifest less judgment than were perceptible on our side." Pennsylvania Governor Andrew Curtin told the president, "It was not a battle, it was a butchery." Curtin reported that the president was heartbroken at the recital.
January 26th, 1863.
This is Jackie Chase coming to you from the White House in Washington, D.C. After a disastrous and bloody defeat at Fredericksburg and a failed second offensive bogged down by winter rains, General Ambrose Burnside asked the president to have several officers who were openly insubordinate be relieved of duty and court-martialed. Absent that, the general offered to resign. Today, President Lincoln chose the latter option and replaced him with Major General Joseph Hooker, one of the officers who had conspired against Burnside.